I watched 12 pairs of eyes drill into me across the Mountain Lodge conference room. The rustling of papers stopped. The clicking of keyboards ceased. Every chair angled toward me in an almost perfect circle, leaving me exposed in the center like an animal caught in a hunt. Outside, snow fell in thick flakes against floor-to-ceiling windows. But inside, the atmosphere burned with something far from cozy. "We've been talking, Aurelia," Niles said, rising from his chair. My manager's voice carried that artificial concern that made my stomach twist. "As a department, we've reached a decision." The overhead lights seemed to intensify, highlighting every face turned toward me. I counted them silently, 12 colleagues I'd worked alongside for 3 years. "You're the problem here," Niles continued, his fingers tapping against the wooden table. The tension, the missed deadlines, the constant questioning of established processes. Octavia nodded vigorously, her tortoiseshell glasses catching the light. "Every project I've managed with you has fallen behind schedule." "You challenge everything," added Kip, the shadows under his eyes more pronounced than usual. "It's exhausting." One by one, they built their case against me. Everly claimed I undermined team morale. Jasper said I was too fixated on unnecessary details. Dahlia complained that my excessive caution cost us a major account last quarter. Their words washed over me like acid rain as I studied their expressions. The practiced concern, the rehearsed disappointment. This wasn't spontaneous. The synchronized nods, the prepared examples, the way they'd positioned themselves in the room. They'd planned this ambush for weeks. I remained silent, my fingers moving discreetly beneath the table as I typed on my phone. The mountain retreat was meant to be 3 days of team building and strategy. Instead, it had become my public execution. "We want you to succeed," Niles finished, his tone suggesting the opposite. "But changes need to happen immediately." The silence that followed hung heavy, everyone waiting for me to crumble, to argue, to give them the emotional outburst they'd clearly anticipated. Instead, I simply nodded and pressed send on an email I'd been composing. "Thank you for your feedback," I said, meeting each gaze steadily. Confusion flickered across their faces. This wasn't the script they'd expected. Before anyone could respond, Niles glanced at his watch. "The CEO's keynote starts in 5 minutes. We should head to the main hall." As we filed out, I felt their sideways glances, their whispered confusion. The retreat schedule continued, but beneath the surface, something fundamental had shifted. 2 presentations later, Roland, our CEO, took the stage, tablet in hand. 10 minutes into his speech about quarterly projections, I saw him pause to check an incoming message. His eyes narrowed slightly as he scrolled through what I'd sent. He looked up, scanning the crowd until his gaze found mine. "Actually," he said, setting aside his notes, "we need to address something more urgent first. Something about integrity and accountability." Niles straightened in his chair beside me. The others exchanged nervous glances. "Effective immediately," Roland continued, "I'm announcing a comprehensive audit of all departmental activities from the past year." The blood drained from Niles's face. "Additionally, I'm implementing a new ethics compliance system, because clearly our current approach isn't working." He never looked directly at our department. He didn't need to. I hope you're enjoying this so far. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories like this one. Your comments mean everything. They help me understand what stories connect with you most. Now, let's get back to what happened after that bombshell at the company retreat. My name is Aurelia Frost, and until 6 months ago, I was living what I thought was my dream career. As a financial compliance specialist at a rapidly growing firm, my job was to ensure our practices matched our promises. I was meticulous, thorough, and utterly devoted to doing things right. That's how the trouble began. I spotted the first inconsistency in March. A client project marked 100% complete that barely existed beyond a fancy presentation. When I questioned it, Niles smiled thinly and told me to focus on your actual responsibilities. 2 weeks later, I discovered inflated hours billed to our biggest client. Niles called it standard industry practice and suggested I stop creating problems where none exist. I might have let it go if I hadn't accidentally received an email thread not meant for me. It revealed that Niles and several senior team members were systematically manipulating project data to inflate performance metrics tied directly to their substantial bonuses. When I brought my concerns to Iris, our HR director, she listened sympathetically before suggesting I might be overthinking things. The next day, my access to certain financial systems was revoked due to system updates. The retaliation escalated quickly. My tasks were reassigned. Critical meetings happened without my knowledge. Decisions were made, then I was blamed when they backfired. The isolation was subtle but effective. Lunch invitations disappeared. Conversations stopped when I entered rooms, and colleagues who once sought my input now avoided eye contact. I began documenting everything, not just the financial discrepancies, but the coordinated effort to push me out. Each conversation, each exclusion, each contradictory instruction became part of my growing file. The weekend before the retreat, I received the agenda. There it was, a 2-hour block labeled Department Alignment Discussion. No details provided, just a room number and a note to bring an open mind. I knew exactly what it meant. The only question was how I would respond when cornered. That morning, as we gathered in that Mountain Lodge conference room, I watched them arrange their chairs in that perfect circle. I saw the glances they exchanged as I entered. I noticed how Niles had positioned himself closest to the door, as if needing a quick escape route. When the accusations began, I didn't interrupt. I let them speak, each one reading from their mental script of complaints. And I composed the email that would change everything, not with threats or accusations, but with meticulously organized evidence of what they'd been hiding. After Roland's announcement at the keynote, the retreat continued in name only. The team-building exercises felt hollow, every trust fall and problem-solving activity undermined by the knowledge that something massive was shifting beneath the surface. Niles avoided me completely. The others either did the same or approached with sudden, transparent attempts at friendship. Dahlia cornered me by the coffee station, her voice hushed. "What exactly did you say to Roland?" she asked, stirring her coffee with unusual intensity. I simply smiled, just sharing some observations. The retreat ended a day early. As we boarded the company shuttle back to the city, the silence was broken only by the occasional ping of incoming messages. News travels fast, and by the time we reached the office, everyone knew. Auditors would arrive Monday morning. The Monday after our return, the elevators opened to reveal a team of unfamiliar faces carrying briefcases and tablets. The auditors had arrived, their presence sending ripples through every department. People hurried between offices with strained expressions, whispers trailing behind them like smoke. I sat at my desk, working as usual, while chaos unfolded around me. The team that had surrounded me at the retreat now avoided looking in my direction. When they passed my desk, their footsteps quickened. The smug certainty from the Mountain Lodge had evaporated, replaced by something brittle and anxious. Mid-morning, Niles called an emergency department meeting. His usual polished appearance had slipped, his collar uneven, a light sheen of sweat visible on his forehead. "The audit team will request access to all our files," he announced, eyes darting around the room but never landing on me. "This is routine, nothing to worry about. Just answer their questions truthfully and directly." Everly raised her hand. "What exactly are they looking for?" Niles cleared his throat. "General compliance review. Standard procedure." "It doesn't seem standard," Jasper muttered, arms crossed tightly. "They've never pulled in external auditors before." I felt Octavia's gaze burning into me from across the room. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away. The meeting disbanded with nervous energy. As everyone filed out, Niles caught my arm. "Aurelia," he said, his voice low. "Whatever you think you know." "Yes?" I responded calmly. His grip tightened briefly, then released. "Never mind. Just remember, we're all on the same team here." I smiled. "Are we?" The following days unfolded in slow motion. The auditors set up in the corner conference room, calling people in one by one. I watched as my colleagues emerged from their interviews, some composed, others visibly shaken. Kip cornered me in the break room 3 days into the audit. "What did you tell them?" he demanded, close enough that I could smell the coffee on his breath. His usual easygoing demeanor had vanished. "The truth," I replied simply, just like Niles instructed. His face darkened. "You have no idea what you've done." "I think I do," I said, stepping around him to leave. "But I'm curious if you do." That afternoon, an email arrived from Roland's assistant requesting my presence in his office at 5 p.m. I felt 12 pairs of eyes tracking me as I walked through the department toward the elevators. Roland's office occupied the entire northeast corner of the top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the city skyline, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across his minimalist furniture. "Sit," he said, not looking up from his computer. I settled into the chair across from him, waiting silently. The only sound was the gentle hum of the ventilation system and the occasional click of his keyboard. Finally, He turned his attention to me. The auditors are finding discrepancies. I nodded but offered nothing. Major discrepancies, he continued, studying my reaction. In project reports, client billing, resource allocation. I'm not surprised, I said quietly. No, I don't imagine you are. He leaned back, fingers forming a steeple. What I don't understand is why you didn't come directly to me when you first noticed. I met his gaze steadily. I tried the proper channels. I spoke to Niles. I went to HR. Each time, I was told to stay in my lane. Each time, the retaliation escalated. And you documented all of this. Every instance. Roland nodded slowly. Smart, though some might call it calculating. I call it survival, I replied. A hint of something like respect flickered across his face before he turned back to his computer. The audit continues. In the meantime, I'm placing Niles on administrative leave. Effective immediately. My heart lurched, but I kept my expression neutral. And the rest of the department? We'll see where the evidence leads. He dismissed me with a nod. Word of Niles's suspension spread like wildfire. By morning, his office was empty, his personal items gone as if he'd never existed. The department operated in stunned silence, everyone walking on eggshells. Dahlia approached me as I worked, her voice barely above a whisper. They're saying 3 more people will be suspended by the end of the week. I continued typing, not looking up. Where did you hear that? Jasper overheard the auditors talking. She hesitated. They mentioned Octavia, Kip, and she swallowed. Me. Now I did look up. Dahlia's perfectly composed appearance couldn't hide the panic in her eyes. What did you know, Dahlia? I asked quietly. Nothing concrete, she insisted. I noticed things didn't add up sometimes. But Niles assured us it was all approved methodology. And the campaign against me? Was that approved methodology too? Color flooded her cheeks. That wasn't my idea. Niles said you were becoming a liability, that your constant questioning would bring down the entire department. So you helped corner me at the retreat. I didn't know what else to do, she whispered. Please, Aurelia. I have 2 kids and a mortgage. I can't lose this job. I regarded her for a long moment. You should have thought about that before you joined the mob. By Friday, the predicted suspensions became reality. Octavia, Kip, and Dahlia were escorted out by security, their access badges collected. The remaining team members moved through the office like ghosts, hollow-eyed and jumpy. That evening, Everly and Jasper were waiting at my car in the parking garage. We need to talk, Everly said, her usual confidence replaced by something desperate. I unlocked my car. I have nothing to say to either of you. Jasper stepped forward. Look, we know we messed up, but you have to understand, Niles controlled everything. If we questioned him, we were cut out completely. Like you cut me out? I asked, opening my car door. That was different, Everly insisted. You were threatening the entire structure. The fraudulent structure, I corrected. We didn't know how deep it went, Jasper said. Not really. Not until the auditors started digging. I paused, studying their faces in the harsh fluorescent lighting of the garage. What do you want from me? They exchanged glances. Put in a good word, Everly finally said. Tell Roland we were just following directions, that we didn't understand the implications. Everly finally said. A laugh escaped me, sharp and without humor. You want me to save you after you tried to destroy me? We were wrong, Jasper admitted, his voice cracking. We know that now. I got into my car and closed the door, rolling down the window just enough to say, you'll get exactly what you deserve. Nothing more, nothing less. As I drove home, rain began to fall, streaking across my windshield like tears. The city lights blurred into watery constellations. My phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from various team members, all suddenly eager to explain, to justify, to rewrite history. I ignored them all. 3 weeks into the audit, Roland called me to his office again. This time, his demeanor was different, more decisive, less cautious. The preliminary findings are worse than expected, he said without preamble. Systematic fraud extending back at least 2 years. Falsified client reports, phantom projects, diverted resources. He shook his head. The question now is how to proceed. Meaning? I asked. Meaning, do we handle this internally or involve authorities? He studied me carefully. You've been at the center of this storm, Aurelia. I'd like your input. The power of that moment wasn't lost on me. With a word, I could determine the fate of everyone who had tried to crush me. My heart pounded in my ears as I considered my response. Before I answer that, I said slowly, I'd like to know what happens to the department moving forward. Roland leaned back. It needs new leadership. Someone with integrity and attention to detail. Someone who values compliance over convenience. His eyes never left mine. I'm offering you Niles's position. The words hung in the air between us. Department head. The role Niles had dangled before me as bait, then snatched away when I refused to ignore the discrepancies. And if I accept? I asked. You would have complete authority to restructure as you see fit, he replied, starting immediately. I felt a smile form, slow and certain. Then I know exactly what needs to happen next. The following Monday, I arrived at the office an hour early. As the new department head, I wanted time to prepare before facing what remained of my team. I stood in Niles's former office, as my office now, and absorbed the strange reality of my situation. 3 weeks ago, they had surrounded me like predators sensing weakness. Now I held their professional futures in my hands. Roland had given me complete authority to rebuild. The question wasn't whether to clean house, but how thoroughly to do it. At precisely 9 a.m., I called my first departmental meeting. The 8 remaining team members filed in, their expressions ranging from nervous to calculating. I noticed how they chose seats, Everly and Jasper together, the others spread out, nobody wanting to appear too aligned with anyone else. Good morning, I began, remaining standing while they sat. As you know, I've been appointed to lead this department following the results of the audit. Murmurs rippled through the room. I let my gaze move from face to face, noting how many couldn't maintain eye contact. 4 of our colleagues are gone. Their actions were inexcusable and have damaged both our reputation and our integrity as a team. Everly nodded vigorously, clearly hoping to signal her alignment with my perspective. However, I continued, responsibility doesn't end with them. The room went still. Each person in this department had opportunities to speak up, to question, to refuse participation in activities you knew were questionable at best, fraudulent at worst. We were just following established protocols, Jasper interjected, voice tight. We didn't have the full picture. I let his words hang in the air for a moment. Is that your position, Jasper? That you never noticed anything wrong until the audit? Color crept up his neck. Not exactly, but because the evidence suggests otherwise, I cut in. The audit revealed that everyone in this room was aware of at least some aspects of the misconduct. The question now is what we do moving forward. Relief visibly swept through the room. They thought I was offering redemption, a path forward, second chances. I've spent the weekend reviewing personnel files and audit findings, I said, opening a folder on the table. I've made decisions about the future structure of this department. Tension returned, electric and immediate. I began distributing envelopes to each person. Inside, you'll find your new role description and reporting structure. Some of you will be reassigned to different teams. Some will remain here under new guidelines. All of you will participate in mandatory ethics training beginning next week. They opened their envelopes with varying degrees of urgency. Watched expressions shift from relief to confusion to, in some cases, indignation. Everly was the first to speak. This says I'm being demoted to associate level. That's 3 steps down. Reflecting your level of involvement and the skills you've demonstrated, I replied evenly. This is punishment, she sputtered, after I specifically explained my situation to you. No, Everly, punishment would be termination, which was my initial recommendation. Roland and I reached a compromise. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Others were now staring at their own reassignments, with new understanding. You can't do this, Jasper said, voice low with anger. We have contracts, performance reviews, rights, all of which have been reviewed by legal in light of the audit findings, I replied. The alternative was to recommend criminal charges for the 8 of you as well. Would you prefer that option? Silence fell. They looked at me with new eyes, no longer seeing the colleague they had tried to eliminate, but someone with power they hadn't anticipated. You have until end of day to accept your new positions, I concluded. After that, we'll proceed with termination paperwork instead. The meeting disbanded in stunned silence. As they filed out, Mason, the newest team member who had been mostly silent during the retreat ambush, lingered behind. You didn't reassign me, he said quietly, looking at his letter. I'm still in the same role. You spoke up once, I replied. In the quarterly review last month, you questioned the Westward project numbers. Niles shut you down, but you tried. That counts for something. His expression showed surprise that I remembered. I thought no one noticed. I noticed everything, Mason. That's why I'm here, and Niles isn't. Throughout the day, my inbox filled with messages from team members, each taking a different approach. Everly threatened to involve her attorney. Jasper attempted to negotiate better terms. Others sent lengthy apologies, as if words could erase their actions. By 5 p.m., 7 acceptance letters sat on my desk. Only Everly had chosen termination over demotion. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt hollow. That evening, as I packed up my things, Roland appeared in my doorway. "How did it go?" he asked, though from his expression he already knew. "About as expected," I replied. "Most of them accepted the reassignments. And you? How are you processing all this?" I paused, considering his question. "I'm not sure yet," he nodded thoughtfully. "Power reveals character, Aurelia, both when people have it and when it's used against them." He studied me closely. "I'm curious which path you'll choose." "What do you mean?" "You could destroy them completely if you wanted. Push for criminal charges. Release the evidence publicly. Ensure they never work in this industry again." He tilted his head. "But that's not what you're doing. Would you prefer I did?" I asked. "I want to understand your strategy," he replied. "Help me see what you see." I closed my laptop, gathering my thoughts. Destroying them would be easy, expected even. But then what? I lead a department of new hires, with no institutional knowledge? I spend years rebuilding what took a decade to create? "So it's pragmatic," he said. "Not merciful." "It's both," I admitted. "And neither. I want something sustainable. Breaking everything would feel good for a moment. But revenge isn't your end goal," he finished for me. Interesting. 2 months passed. The department restructured under my leadership. The reassigned team members either adapted to their new roles or left voluntarily. New hires brought fresh energy. Clients responded positively to our renewed commitment to transparency. On paper, everything looked perfect. But beneath the surface, resentment simmered. The remaining original team members formed a silent coalition, undermining me in subtle ways. Deadlines mysteriously slipped. Information reached me last. Client meetings happened without proper preparation. I documented everything, just as before, but took no immediate action. I knew what they didn't, that my apparent forgiveness was more calculated than they imagined. 6 months after the retreat, Roland announced the annual Leadership Summit, a gathering of department heads and executives to set strategy for the coming year. My first time attending as part of leadership, the night before the summit, I finalized my presentation, reviewing the materials one last time. Everything was in place. The summit opened with Roland's vision for the company's future. Other department heads shared their success stories and challenges. Then came my turn. I walked to the podium, feeling every eye in the room on me. The executives who had heard rumors about our department's upheaval. The other department heads curious about how I'd managed the transition. And in the back row, watching with barely concealed hostility, the 4 team members I'd insisted on bringing, Jasper, Mason, and 2 others from the original confrontation. 6 months ago, I began. Our department faced a crisis of integrity that threatened this company's reputation and financial stability. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Roland nodded slightly, encouraging me to continue. Today, I'm not here to talk about what went wrong. I'm here to share how we're building something better. I launched into my presentation, highlighting our restructured compliance protocols, improved client satisfaction metrics, and innovative reporting systems. As I spoke, I noticed the tension in Jasper's posture slowly relax. The others began taking notes, their expressions shifting from suspicion to grudging respect. But transformation isn't just about systems, I continued, approaching the crucial moment. It's about people, about creating an environment where integrity isn't just encouraged but expected, where speaking truth isn't punished but rewarded. I clicked to the next slide. There, listed prominently, were the names of team members receiving special recognition bonuses for exceptional contributions to our new initiatives. Jasper's name was there, so was Mason's, and the others who had chosen the difficult path of earning back trust through consistent, honest work. These individuals, I said, meeting their startled gazes, could have left when things got hard. Instead, they stayed. They rebuilt. They proved that a single mistake, even a serious one, doesn't have to define a career. The room erupted in applause. Roland joined me at the podium, shaking my hand as he announced the substantial bonus amounts. In the back row, I watched comprehension dawn on their faces. This wasn't just recognition. It was rehabilitation, a public restoration of their professional standing. And in that moment, I achieved what no amount of punishment could have accomplished. genuine loyalty, not from fear or manipulation, but from the profound relief of redemption when destruction was expected. That evening, Roland pulled me aside at the summit reception. Masterful, he said quietly. You've bound them to you more completely than fear ever could. They'll walk through fire for you now. I sipped my sparkling water. That wasn't the goal, wasn't it? His eyes sparkled with something like admiration. You found the one thing they never expected, the chance to reclaim their reputations. And you gave it to them publicly, ensuring everyone knows you had the power to destroy them but chose elevation instead. Is that how you see it? I see a leader who understands that true power isn't about punishment. It's about transformation. He raised his glass in a toast. The department that tried to end your career is now the most loyal team in the company. If that's not the perfect revenge, I don't know what is. As I looked across the room at my team, now genuinely my team, I realized he was right. I had destroyed the people who cornered me that day at the retreat, not by firing them or humiliating them, but by transforming them into something better. The ultimate revenge wasn't their downfall, but their redemption under my terms. And that, I discovered, tasted sweeter than destruction ever could. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever experienced workplace betrayal? How did you handle it? Your engagement means everything to me, and it helps these stories reach more people who might need to hear them. Thanks for listening until the end.